I see that we are on POC time. We are hella on, like, all the people that were bothering me about reserved seats, none of them are here. My sister's not here yet. She's coming. Hi, how's everybody doing? So welcome to my third book release. Hermosa is here, and there's so many hermosas in the audience. Can y'all give it up for yourselves? Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Saya. I'm gonna cry. So this is my sister, and this is my niece, Saya, who the book is dedicated to. And I did not know she was coming. And it's the first time she's ever gonna hear me do poems. So she's 8 years old, and she loves the color pink like I do. And butt jokes. We're really big on butt jokes in my house. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for Not a Cult. This is our third book together. So to the team, to Hollis and Daniel and Rhiannon and Ian, who's not here, and all the other hands behind getting these books out, these thousands of books out to people. Thank you. I love you so much. We've already sold over 4,000 copies of Hermosa. And it's so surreal. 3 years ago, I sat in the second to the last row of this section in the third seat where the curly-headed woman is, and Sandra Cisneros was sitting on this stage. And I showed up, I didn't have a ticket, and I had to wait for will call. And I remember thinking the whole time that I was sitting in that seat, I want this so bad. And Luis Rodriguez was here, and he was sitting in that section in the back. And at the Q&A, he raised his hand, and they started talking like they're homies, you know? So they started talking to each other, and then somebody else they knew from back in the day was in the room. And it was like none of us were here, and they were all talking to each other about when they were just poets coming up. And I remember being so excited to see that, but wanting to manifest that for myself one day. I wanted to be part of the writers that get to document Los Angeles. And the fact that here, only 3 years later, I'm sitting in the same seat that Sandra sat, and I'm releasing my third book to a bunch of beautiful faces that look just like me. So thank you so much for being part of the journey with me. I also want to give a thank you to the Poetry Lounge community, DPL. I would not be the woman that I am without this community. I forgot to check if Shihan was coming, so if you're here, hi, I love you. If you're not here, I still love you. But my mentors, Shihan and Javon, who pushed me, who always asked me, what's next? What am I doing? What am I writing? To the Mami Collective, which only two of Mala's here, and I know Diosa's on her way, and Maritza is off getting her in grad school, and Gordita Applebum is being a boss in Toronto. I don't know. Maybe she's chasing down Drake for me. I'm not sure. But I'm really excited about today because I brought my homie with me, my friend Walter Thompson-Hernandez, all of the last names. I love it when people have multiple last names because our parents weren't that, I don't know, whatever. But Walter is amazing. He dyed his hair to match my book. That's not what happened, but that's the story I'm giving y'all. When you're the writer, you get to decide like what the story is, so that's the story. And yesterday he made me go to Cafe Gratitude where they give you affirmations every time you order something, and it was hella weird. And then he left, and I didn't realize what was happening. I was writing, and I looked up, and I was the only person of color in there, and I was just like, you traitor, you booked it. So can we all give it up for my friend, Walter Thompson-Hernandez? Not only is he my homie, but he is also a New York Times journalist. Where are you, Walter? Oh, okay, sorry. And so we wanted to talk today, and we really don't have a game plan, which is, if you all know that this is my life, I don't believe in game plans, because I feel like if you overplan, nothing goes through. And I'll tell you a little bit later about that. But yeah, hi.
What's up, Yesika? What's going on?
Thank you for saying yes.
Of course, I got you.
Thank you for dressing up.
How you feeling? What's going on?
I'm good. I love the fact that like he's a journalist and he shows up everywhere with his kicks.
Yo, like
and
Nike's
then, like,
forever.
People be like, what?
Right. So you didn't like Cafe Gratitude yesterday?
I mean, the food was all right. It was good.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was vegan.
For sure.
It was, decolonized.
Well,
no, but then it was white. I don't know.
100%.
It got so decolonized it became colonized again.
Right. And then like we were like the only folks of color there for sure.
Yeah, I looked up and I was just like,
Definitely.
I am elated. No, I'm not.
Let's give Yesika a shout out, right? Like let's like really like celebrate Yesika right now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm like hardly ever at home. I'm hardly ever in LA, but I'm always like supporting Yesika wherever I am, and I'm always like just like loving what you're doing, and just like how you're putting on for the city that we love so much, right? And it's just been really dope to see you, like the evolution and just how I feel like LA is changing so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of folks who are moving here from different places, and I feel like you are one of the voices that I trust, that I feel like a lot of folks trust to really like hold it down for this city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I appreciate you so much for doing that. Thank you.
I appreciate you too.
Of course. We really don't have a game plan, right? Like
We don't.
like
We're just gonna
actually, yeah. Like I was
figure
like,
it out.
let's just talk shit on stage, And
That's what we do. Night cuz.
Right.
Saya, earmuffs.
right, earmuffs for sure. But
How are you doing, Saya? Saya, this is my friend Walter.
Hi, Saya. How you doing?
Say hi. There you go. Okay.
A little wave. But I did kind of want to ask you, right? Like I feel like what you said about like writing for this city, right?
Yeah.
And like writing about this city. There's something about writing about LA, and I ask people a lot of questions all the time, but like I kind of just wanted to ask you that question tonight. Like, what does it feel like to write for the city and about the city right now?
I think the LA that I know is quickly disappearing. And so I'm holding on. It's holding on to things, right? Like, I went to the Cafe Tropical today, which is where I wrote all of my books. And I walked in, and it's completely remodeled, and they have new owners. And immediately I almost started crying because I'm like, fuck. The gringos got us. And then I found out that it's like a POC that bought it, but it's clearly catered to a different group of people now. And I feel that that's what's happening, being that I'm from Silver Lake, from Echo Park, is that the neighborhoods that I knew don't exist anymore. So I'm writing because then no one's gonna, like, if I don't tell this, like if I don't write down my memories, then they're also gonna get lost, And I hate seeing, there's a mural on my block that I walk by every day, and it's like artists from LA, and it's a bunch of white men. And I hate that that's the story that's told, right? The Silver Sun Pickups and Elliott Smith, and I don't know who else is on that. Jenny? I don't know. Okay. But it's just a bunch of people that aren't like the block that's lived there. We've lived there 35 years. And that doesn't look like my neighborhood.
Right. How do people respond to you when you tell them that you're from Silver Lake? I bet folks are like, wait, like, when did you move there? Like last year, 2 years ago, right? Or something
My
like
favorite
that.
is Uber drivers were like, oh, this is where you live? Because there's a really nice house like on the corner, and I'd be psyching people out. I make them drop me off at that house.
Right.
And then like I'll cross the street over to my house. But I mean, I don't want,
For
whatever.
sure.
But they're always just like, this is, And then I've had people try to come at me. They're like, well, you live in Silver Lake. I'm like, yeah, but the Silver Lake that I knew growing up isn't the Silver Lake you know now. Like, like I was in the hood. I was in the part of Silver Lake that nobody wanted to go over to. I was the part where Rampart Police District would come and harass the brown boys on my block.
Right.
The taggers.
The taggers.
We were talking about taggers yesterday.
We were talking about taggers. Yeah.
And, like I grew up, that was kind of like the Silver Lake that I knew isn't the Silver Lake that exists anymore. Like now it's all high fences and neighbors that you never meet. I was at La Cita with Mala, and we were hanging out with somebody, and it turned out that we lived 2 doors away from each other. Like, and I had been chilling. We were chilling with this guy for like a few hours, and then he goes, "I live in Silver Lake." Like, I go, "Where?"
What part?
Because people would be like from Los Feliz, and then they'd be saying they're Silver Lake, or they'd be from like somewhere else, and they're like, "I'm in Silver Lake." But and then he goes, "I live on this block," and I was just like, "No."
Right.
And then he goes, "I live in this house," and I was just like, "Oh shit, we're neighbors." And then I'm like, "I probably dog you when I walk by you."
Right, all the time. Right. Right. Did you kind of like, when you were growing up, right, like did you ever envision yourself like writing about the city and like writing about, when I read what you write, like I always think about you as of course being a poet, but I also think about you as like a journalist. Like you are reporting and these like real life observations about what you see and what you've known, right? And I was kind of curious, like, when you were growing up, is that something that you envisioned yourself doing?
No, I mean, I've said it before. I was writing to survive.
Mm.
You know, I grew up in a home with a very complicated home. You know, like undocumented parents that then became kind of documented. That
Right.
then one of them was a citizen and the other one wasn't, and so
Right.
there was that dynamic. And then my father was an alcoholic, and my mother only has like a third grade education. It was like all these complex things happening in my home, and the only way to make sense of it was to write. So then when the city became complex for me, of course I started writing about it, because that's the way that's how I make sense of everything.
Right.
So when it started feeling less and less like home, I was trying to figure out why. And then all the poems started happening, and then also I kind of tend to go overboard about shit. So then I'm like, I'm gonna prove a real point. And then,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. There's also like a lot of references to like, I feel like, I grew up in a time in LA where I was always on the bus. Like my ass was just on all the buses, right? Like from like growing up like the RTD when that turned to MTA to like the big blue bus on the west side to like the green bus. And I feel like your book really talks about the bus a lot, and like your experiences. And like I wonder like how formative that was for like you and growing up.
Oh man, we grew up on the bus. My mom never learned she didn't want to learn how to drive. I don't know how to drive. And I worked in a parking garage for like 10 years. Just never cured to get behind a car.
Right.
So I never learned how to drive. My mom didn't learn how to drive. And my mom was always said, preguntando, we can get anywhere. So we'd get on the bus and go to the grocery store. We'd get on the bus and go to church. We'd get on the bus to come down here to this library, to anywhere. If you had a bus pass, the city was yours. And then I always worked on the west side. I always had service jobs.
Right.
In a parking garage, at Papyrus. I was selling vector knives for a while.
Okay.
Cutco. I was cutting pennies for people. And so, like, I was always on the west side, so I would spend about 4 hours a day on the bus, 2 hours one way, 2 hours the other way. And I had stories. Like, when I first started performing, my talking between poems was, like, adventures on the bus. And it's interesting to see, because now I Uber everywhere. So now it's Uber driver stories.
Right. Do you remember, like, one story from, like, a bus or, like, a bus experience that you want to share with us?
I'll tell you the quickest one.
All right,
We were I was my homegirl, my best friend and I, Araceli. We were going to go to the Glenda Galleria, because that's the spot where we would go to the mall. Before the Americana was there, so it was just the Glenda Galleria. And we were waiting for the 201 on the corner of Sunset and Parkman. And there was a woman across the street, and she was like drunk, and she had done some wild shit the day before. And I was like, oh yeah, that was the woman that had a knife in the alley yesterday when Jennifer was like walked out. And then like whatever, we dismissed it. We don't know what happened to the lady. And then I'm talking to my friend, and all of a sudden I feel somebody kick me in the ass.
Somebody kicked you in the ass?
Somebody kicked me in the ass,
shit.
and I turned around, and it was a woman, and she was just standing there. And I go, why did you kick me? She goes, I didn't kick you. And my best friend goes, I just saw you kick her. And she goes, it wasn't me. And then the bus came and we had to leave. And then I had a boot print on my ass.
The whole day.
So that was, yeah.
Wow. Damn. That's a crazy ass story.
Yeah, And then that, like when you grow up in the hood, there's the transient people, and you're like, oh, that's, when they're on one, you leave that person alone.
Right.
And then like that was the one that you could say hi to. Don't say hi to that one because they'll follow you all the way to your door. Like those kinds of things. But they're also part of your extended family, And my mom's always would be rushing out to give the Juanitos like some bread or like a blanket or like whatever.
Something, huh?
Because I had tios that were Juanitos at some point too. And
Right.
And so my dad, I mean, he was lucky he had us, because we'd go be like, come and get your ass inside, or else he'd also be running around with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So this is your third book, right?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I'm tired.
You tired? You good? Was there something like different about this book? Like it may be your process for writing it, or like maybe certain challenges that came up?
Yeah, like I didn't want to write it.
Oh shit. Why not?
I don't know. I had the deadline, and then Daniel was just like, "Yo, where's the book?" And then I was like, "I don't know, Daniel. Um, I know we have a contract. I already spent my money. I don't know what's gonna happen." And then I'm like, "Can I have an extension?" And so then I was given an extension, and then no book, and then it
No
was
book.
17 days overdue, and he was just like, "Where's the book?" And I was like, "I'll have it for you tomorrow." And so 2 days, that day where I was like, I have it for you tomorrow, my friend Gabby Rivera, shout out to Gabby, who's also a writer, wrote Julia Takes a Breath, and a phenomenal person. We met for pupusas, and she was here to work on a new graphic novel she's doing. And she goes, "You know what? I came to LA for work, so let's work." And she clears the table. And she's like, "What is it about this book that you're not that's holding you back?" I'm like, "I don't know. I already wrote about love and my family." And I'm crying. I'm like, "I don't know how I'm going to outdo myself." And she's just like, she goes, "Can I tell you, as someone who enjoys your work, who's a fan of your work, I haven't seen this Yesika in your books yet.
Right.
I haven't seen the nails and high femme and flashy Yesika yet." And she's like, "And that's who I would be interested in seeing a book from." So then I was like, okay, I have homework. And I went home and I drank coffee and I stayed up till 6 a.m. putting together the manuscript, and I turned it in. And then my editor was getting married. So luckily, I kept sneaking in poems, seeing that she wasn't editing them, and then I kept
On the
moving
low,
shit around.
right.
And because then I was on a roll, right?
Right,
Because I'm
right,
now
right.
I got it. But all right, go to your bridal shower. I got this, and I'm putting in more poems. And then
Go get married.
and then she started editing, and then we were like, all right, there's no, people writers, we like to say this book means this and that. No, this is literally the poems that I liked, and I put them in a book. And it wasn't some this is gonna save people or anything like that, because I have to remember that at the end of the day, if I don't like my work, what's the point of me doing it?
Right.
And so this book is selfishly for myself. And I mean, I dedicated it to my niece and to the brown girls of Los Angeles, because I feel that sometimes we need to be reminded to be selfish and to do work that we enjoy.
Right.
We're always busy. We're always worried about saving everybody.
Doing other shit.
Doing other shit. We're
Right.
I'm going to write a poem where all fat girls can see themselves. I'm like, no, bitch, write a poem for yourself.
Right.
And then people
Right.
will come or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It seems to me there's also something very, I think, political about that, and even revolutionary, and even kind of ties into self-care, right? Because we're writing for ourselves, and hopefully if you enjoy this and if you see yourself, then others will as well, right? It seems like it.
Yeah, that's hopefully the plan. I mean, it's worked so far. I mean,
Definitely.
either way, 4,000 people bought it. If you don't like it, oh bad, sorry.
No refunds.
The numbers are in. So yeah, it's been a thrill, and I think my favorite part of it is that I get to share with so many dope people.
Definitely.
Yosemite's here. Can you give it up
Shout
for
out to Yossi.
Yosemite?
What's up, Yossi?
Because I need to be sitting at one of his book releases sometime soon. So let's call him out on that, yeah? So the next book release, bitch.
Yossi's always looking fly too.
Yeah.
He's always looking really
That
fly.
V-neck gets deeper and deeper.
Yo, every year it gets deeper.
I love it, J-Lo.
But it's great though. It's great.
Sorry, I'm not objectifying you. I love you.
For sure. Let's talk about LA again, right? You travel often for book readings and for events, right? And people probably feel a certain type of way about LA. Have this idea about Los Angeles, because I find myself defending LA all the time.
Yeah.
All over the world, I'm like, shit. LA's not really like that. My LA isn't what you think it is, right? Do you find yourself doing that often?
Oh, yeah.
Having to explain or defend LA?
Especially when I did competitive poetry, I was on Slam, and we would tell people, oh, we're from Hollywood. And we were like, oh, Hollywood,
Right.
And then I'd be like, no, go walk around Hollywood.
Right. Sure.
You'll give me street cred.
Take a walk, fool.
But I find myself having to also break from the stereotype that I'm not Mexican, because I'm in SoCal.
Totally.
And also understand that as a Salvadoran from LA, we also dominate the Salvadoran conversation. And there are Salvadorans in other parts of the country, so
Totally.
I've kind of have learned to kind of chill and make space for the Salvies on the East Coast. And my thing is, if you ever wonder about the heart of LA, look at what happened when Nipsey died.
Rest in peace, Nipsey, first of all, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I had long conversations about
Absolutely.
we were crying, texting each other. You
Yeah.
weren't here, were you?
I was in like, shit, where was I? Maybe Brazil or somewhere?
Yeah,
I was somewhere.
he low-key standing on us right now. He's like, I don't know, I was in Brazil or like.
Yeah, was that a flex?
Or Cuba.
Was that a flex? I don't know if it was a flex.
I mean, no, it was a humble brag. It was a humble brag.
Like, a motherfucker was
I
in
ain't been to
Brazil.
Brazil, so I'm like, I took it as a flex.
Anyway. No, but yeah.
I gotta work on the path. I'm getting there, yeah.
For sure. We got you. What were you saying about Nipsey though?
Yeah, like, look at the heart, the heart of our city, like how we showed up for one of ours, you know, like, because Nipsey belonged in a very specific LA, a very, very specific LA, right? He belonged to the hood.
Right.
He belonged to the Black community. He belonged to some of the people that create all the dope shit in LA, right? Like, set the tone of what the city is. And it was so surreal to see it online and to have, like, us texting and other friends and you know, to have so much hurt in our texts, and then to be navigating spaces where nobody gave a shit. You know, and there's a poem in the book about how my block was so quiet.
Right.
And I'm like, how can I be full of so much grief for this person, and like nobody else cares here, you know? And like the luxury of not feeling the pain that we felt, you know, or to see the news and change the dial and things like that. And so, but yeah, LA showed the fuck up for Nipsey, and I'm like, that's the city that I know, and that's the city that I love. Right.
Do you also feel like, because I feel like Nipsey was like, to me, you know, like so representative of LA, right? Just in terms of like how he operated, like how he held it down for like Black and brown LA especially, right? Like Nipsey was like really all about like, you know, Black and brown folks like living, working, loving together, right? How do you feel? Because I know when like I wrote a story about Nipsey's death, right? And like a few days after he passed, like I wrote like a sort of like story about Nipsey and what he meant to me. But like I'm curious about like what the passing of Nipsey does for you and for other creatives and writers in LA. Like I feel like Nipsey's passing is a big loss for the city. Like, and it made me just want to put on for the city and just move here and just be here forever, you know, and hopefully try to fill that gap. Is that what you've been feeling too?
Yeah. I mean, it was like seeing someone have the kind of success that he had on his own terms, you know, and being someone that strives to do that herself. And then also being someone who's been in love with a Black man for many years. So to see to have all of that complexity happening just made me like more determined. And it was like when the book was happening, and it was funny because whenever I'm gonna write a book, I always have like this big idea, and it's never like I go around telling the people, I'm like, this book is gonna be about LA, and I'm gonna like break it up into bus stops and like do like this dope shit. And then it's time to write the book, and I'm like, here's 60 poems. Nothing joins them together, but whatever. I mean, stuff does. I do pour myself into it, but I've learned that the work tells you like, nah, but you need to calm down.
For real, right.
I get it. You took the bus.
We get it.
I get it.
You had a bus pass. Like, all right, cool.
Started from the bottom. Now you're here. Get it? Yeah. You know, but it just made me see how hungry our city is to see like the actual people from our city, not the transplants, not the fucking hipsters, not the influencers.
Talk about that shit, right?
Although people call me an influencer as an insult, and then I'm like, whatever. I get free shit in the mail and I get paid for it. So like maybe that was a flex. But
you over here flexing.
You know, but you know, like before the people that moved here was like all of this, and they get mad when they're here, and then I'm like, well, then go back to Wyoming.
Go back to Minnesota.
Yeah, man. Right. Go back to fucking your cornfields, and I come from cornfields too. That's the first line in Corazon. But yeah, like go back to your cornfields somewhere.
Right.
But yeah, it's an honor to be able also to have to have the access that I have and to be able to tell the stories that I tell. And it's also like something I have to be really careful with too. Because I could sit here and tell my narrative and my story, and that's the one that's getting pushed out, and that's what people know and people think. But I have to be like I have to work with integrity, right? Like I have to make sure that I'm telling the story the way that it actually happened, or the way that it actually should be remembered, and so that's been the hardest part of like writing all these poems. Where I'm just like, all right, bitch, let's hold yourself accountable, and all these sad poems that you be writing about this motherfucker, you're still dealing with him. So let's talk about that too.
Right.
But I'll read that later. But they're already waving us down.
We're being waved down. Yeah.
Our time's up.
Our time is up. Shit. It was really great. I appreciate you.
I love you.
Love you too. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for joining me. Can we give it up for Walter? You drop the mic.